Okay, welcome everyone who is attending this webinar from all over the world. My name is Siva Juturi. I'm the Executive Vice President for Sales for VyomLabs. We have our esteemed customer also on this webinar. I have Yomara Knott. She's Senior Director, IT Director, Strategy and Governance for Starr Insurance Companies. And we also have John Hokanson, who is Director of IT Services for Starr Insurance Companies. The webinar is based on the current situation we all are facing globally. This is a global pandemic, COVID-19, and how it's impacting one and all. And we're going to focus on this webinar on how Starr Insurance is leveraging VyomLabs service offering Service Rise by using our Intelligent Service Desk Operations service. Next. So the agenda will cover primarily how COVID-19 is right now, impacting IT in general and also on IT support, introduction to our company VyomLabs and the Service Rise offering. Yomara and John are going to talk about Starr Insurance and then their impact context globally, as well as on IT service desk operations and some of the best practices they have used during this current crisis. Next. So Forrester just came out with a report on the impact for COVID-19. Every company in the world is kind of reeling under the pandemic from a impact perspective, whether it is services industry, manufacturing, or any other industry. We see that there is rapid acceleration of remote working, a new model or new normal for all of us. A lot of IT organizations supporting their customers have created crisis management and SWAT teams. There's a rapid increase also of collaboration tools and also services, including automation, that's going to help go through this crisis successfully. So as you can see, the workforce is shifting and more home-based locations, and there's a certain surge on service desk. For IT and including non-IT on tickets, the volumes have gone significantly higher, and the expectation on SLA just to keep the business operations on and lights on, and also how we can keep the same customer experience and resolve the tickets. There is also on strain on capacity and performance in the IT infrastructure and tool sets that support that. Because of this remote connectivity like network bandwidth. Next. So we're going to focus on how, this situation, VyomLabs, which is Service Rise, is helping our customer Starr Insurance. Briefly about VyomLabs, we are a 2,000 plus employee company, founded 2003. We are global across all continents. We're primarily focused on IT service management across all IT service management product lines, including we also have our own product called Automation Edge, which is the ITPA, RPA, which is bundled into the Service Rise offering. Next. So the support stack for Service Rise includes right from level 1, which is more geared towards end user support or like employees or contract workforce, which is service desk, problem, incident, change, service request management. Then we also have specialists around, more on the data center side, server side support, application databases, network, storage, cloud support, and then we have ITIL certified consultants and capabilities to support coverage of 24/7. Next. So how we combine a Service Rise service with the help of both human agents as well as bots, what we call them as, which are automated workflows that are run in the cloud or on-prem to do things like auto ticket classification or assignment, auto resolution, auto remediation. And the channel of these requests primarily is service desk or any other channel, could be calls, emails, chats that come through service desk. And there could be handoffs from human who actually perform these L1, L2, like password resets, shared folder access, onboarding, offboarding type requests, end user support in terms of emails, and so on and so forth. And how we can hand off the specialists to also specialists on the customer side. Next. So just a minute on how these bots function. They do auto ticket classification. They're not tied to any service desk, can translate this request. Also, we have chatbot facility where the request can come through a conversational platform. And also we apply AI and ML and NLP and NLU capabilities to these bots. Next. Now we'll hand off to Yomara Knott, Senior Director, Strategy and Governance from Starr Insurance. Go ahead, Yomara, take it over.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining today. Just a little background on Starr Insurance Companies. We're about 2,500 employees globally. We were founded by Cornelius van der Starr in 1919. The first office was in Shanghai, China. We have about 38 offices worldwide, and our company headquarters are in New York City, 17 offices in the U.S. Outside the U.S., there are about 21 regional offices. And our core businesses are insurance, investments, global risk intelligence, and global travel assistance services. We are authorized to write in 124 countries. And our gross written premium is about $5.6 billion with $22 billion in assets. So our support model for remote support, what was the strategy? What was the plan? A couple of years ago, we realized as a company was growing, traditional model of on-site support was not sufficient. Realized that we needed to make a change, decided on making an assessment on what can be leveraged with remote operations, with what can be offshore, what can stay onshore, and engage with VyomLabs to do an assessment as to what kind of resources are we able to engage with them so we can get more resources for our budget. At that point, it was a POC that we started with remote operations on level 1 support, desktop support. That increased from 2 people POC from 3 months, which was very successful. It became a larger engagement that went from, like I said, 2 people POC to a 24/7 shop with 3 different shifts, resources, global support. And up to recently in the last year, we introduced chatting. So we have a couple of resources that are only dedicated to chat support. So how do we measure our success if this was a successful model? We did it in a couple of ways, actually in a few ways, mostly checkpoints, meaning that we leverage tier 1 support, tier 2 support was onshore, tier 1 support was offshore with VyomLabs. There were weekly incident reviews. There were SLA reviews. How were they approaching the timeframes? Escalation management, how well were they working with the onshore team and their collaboration and their communication lines? Frequency, they were mostly weekly. It just started on a weekly basis, went to bi-weekly and now monthly. As the success rate increased, then the frequency and the checkpoints decreased. Other key success measures were we used surveys. They were able to help us come up with a server and a rating easier enough that would take an end user to fill out a survey after the ticket was completed in less than a couple of minutes. That was very helpful as we continue to have meetings and reviews. We're able to also review server responses, which it rated from 1 through 5, and on average, as we're going to see later on average it's always been between 4 and 5, which has been tremendous. The feedback from the end users onshore were very positive. We were not sure how the onshore services were going to be affected to the end users, as they were used to having someone at their office or their desk helping them with from minor printer issues to more complicated issues. But this demonstrated that it was successful, and then this model will work. We also created from the beginning runbooks, and the knowledge transfer was very heavy at the beginning. We had a couple of the trainees learn absolutely everything possible. We had someone on shore for a couple of weeks in different offices, from VyomLabs to intake, just to understand the office environment and to also understand the dynamics, as well as doing some knowledge transfer, creating runbooks, use teams to collaborate and start putting together do's and don'ts, and created and not only created but enhanced knowledge articles that they've been very instrumental in coming back to us with certain knowledge articles that might be easier to understand than others, and they've been able to help us put that together pretty well. As well as being ISO compliant, they've been able to help us redesign our workflows, see what works best, what's more efficient, what's easier for the end users. We are heavily working with incident management and service requests on the ITSM side. We do a little of problem management and change management. That's something that is coming down in the next, probably in the roadmap. But we're mostly leveraging VyomLabs to do incident management and service requests. And the coverage has been one of the most successful and interesting points, because not only do we have 24/7 coverage that also covers the U.S., but it also covers all 3 different areas and 3 different shifts, and they cover the Americas, Europe, Asia, and within each regional office, they not only have, there's certain things that they have commonalities as to, they use the same Office 365. There's certain systems that go across the board, but there are some systems and some applications that are dedicated to the regional offices, and it's a learning curve. And it was easier to have the Tier 1 team learn that by region, and they are supporting that based on the region of where the end user client is. So the benefits and the value, I think I mentioned this already before. It was significant cost reduction, better ROI, given that we're able to utilize more resources for our budgets. We're able to have the flexibility to increase and add to staff without having to work on the yearly. We're on a yearly calendar, so work on the yearly budget and waiting for a year before we can get additional resources. The flexibility of having that, being able to add to staff at a moment's notice, we're going to see that later on. Why that was tremendous, and that was a key component of doing this remote support for level 1. Again, flexibility to span into global locations to support levels, as I mentioned before, not only on common systems, but they're also learning regional systems and supporting them on the different time frames in the different time zones. Skilled and competent workforce. What we found as well is once we trained VyomLabs key staff or their leads, they were able to easily train their staff to onboard them. so that was very successful. We didn't have to meaning Starr and onshore, the onshore IT team. We didn't have to continue to train level 1 help desk staff. I think every organization knows pretty much anyone in IT starts with help desk. They move on to other areas. So it's almost you're constantly training people, you're constantly onboarding, and it was beneficial to have VyomLabs have a run book, have their own training material. So when we did need to increase staff, they were able to increase them easier and smoothly. The 24/7, 365 support has been very beneficial. We're not limited to our core business hours, 9 to 5. If someone's working from home, even now more than ever, working from home, they're not working the core business hours. They're working outside of core business hours. Now we have support staff to assist them as they need the support in order to move forward with their work. And better user experience in response times. Because we separated level 1, level 2, even level 3, now someone that had a simple request didn't have to wait for an onshore staff to, first in, first out. That was the normal way, or traditional way, how we had our help desk. They no longer had to do that. They no longer have to wait their 5-minute solution. They didn't have to wait, a long day before someone can free up their time fixing someone else's more complicated solution just to help them with something easier. So now separating these 2 different buckets, the easier tickets, the level 1 support tickets, where their SLAs were even faster than in the traditional way with the onshore team. And now I'm passing this to John Hokanson. He is going to provide more insight from an operational standpoint.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining. My name is John Hokanson. I'm the Director of IT Services at Starr. Brief background about myself. I've been at Starr for about 10 years. Had multiple positions, many different hats were worn, but recently I transitioned over into the services side, where I've been in this role now currently for about 1.5 years, close to 2 years. And I got to say, when the opportunity was presented to me back in 2018 for an offshore service desk, I was a little hesitant. But then again, we met with VyomLabs, and I couldn't be happier with the amount of service and the tremendous work they've done in a short amount of time. As you can see here with this graph, VyomLabs started with us back in April of 2018. And if you look here, I don't know if you can see it, but there's two different colors here. There's a blue and a teal, or I think it's teal. Those numbers represent the total number of tickets that were taken on a 3-month basis. And the orange numbers are what we're taking on a monthly basis. So if you add them up, you think you have 396 and 616 for the first month, you get a total of 1048. So again, as time progressed, you can see that the numbers increased and steadily increased, and sometimes have even dropped off due to people being on vacation, whatever the case may be. But let's fast forward to 2020 and discuss how COVID, also known as the coronavirus, has pretty much crippled the economy, and a lot of people are now working from home, and the amount of resources that are needed to support people remotely is just astronomical. So again, kudos to Vyom for having their staff and their quick turnaround times to alleviate issues within Starr, because as you can imagine, when coronavirus first hit back here, and I guess, the second week of March or so, you can look at the numbers for the first quarter of 2020, and it practically doubled to 4,872. And most of those numbers came from March alone, 2,480 tickets just in March. So that, again, was a tremendous amount of volume, and it pretty much doubled. Next slide, please. This slide here is a breakdown of all the top 20 incidents since Vyom has been on board with us since the start of 2018. I don't really want to go too much into detail with this because I want to save some time for some question and answers towards the end. But as you know, again on the right, you can see, Outlook is the majority of calls, and being that, again, a lot of people are remote, people were not sure how to set up their profiles and whatever else, whatever issues they were having. So that was an influx of calls to the service desk. And there's a slide a little bit later on which will break it down a little bit more as to the types of calls that we got specifically during the COVID pandemic. Next slide, please. So this slide here is another breakdown of all of the tickets from 2020, from February till March. And the blue on the bottom is what was created in a weekly basis. And the orange is what was closed by Tier 1. And when you hear me say Tier 1, that I refer to them as VyomLabs because, again, as Yomara stated, we try to have a tiered approach to support. We have Tier 1, which is our offshore team, aka Vyom, and then we have a Tier 2, which is our onshore services team, and then Tier 3, which is networking, security, and operations for anything that we cannot solve. So again, you can see the numbers here have steadily held, but then again, if you look at week 3 of March 20th, there was 867 tickets. I'm sorry, 869 tickets that were submitted in just 1 week. And again, kudos to Vyom for taking the time to properly assist, route, troubleshoot, and set people up in a time of need. So again, tremendous job. You can see that only 2 tickets out of the 869 were left open or passed on to a different level of support. And again, because it may be something they didn't have access to, or it needed to go to a higher level. And then after week 3 of March, you can see that the numbers have come down a little bit because people have gotten used to working at home. A lot of their issues have been resolved, and they're feeling more comfortable with being able to access VPN and Outlook and whatever whatever other areas of their job they need to perform. So since, again, the COVID crisis happened, you have seen on the previous slides that our numbers and ticket volumes have doubled. And again, we would not be able to have a fast turnaround time to go through and handle all these requests with just the amount of onshore staff that we have. So again, Vyom was tremendous in helping us resolve these tickets in a timely manner. They were able to route tickets. They were able to work with the onshore team directly through Teams. We've had various meetings, kept them up to date on what was going on and how Starr was trying to rework and take all the common tickets or the incidents that we saw to better it so we can reduce ticket count and also, keep business flowing. So this slide here has the difference between before COVID and after. Before COVID, we were doing on average about 1,000 tickets per month, and they were being resolved remotely. And again, that was over 2,000 plus users. And our SLA rate was near 100, which again is pretty tremendous because given the business that we're in, we do have some pretty important people that need to get some stuff done right away. And, they've been tremendous. The areas that were covered are end user support, user access, AD management, file share permissions, application and system support. Again, I can talk more about that later on if you have any questions or comments. I don't want to take time with this right now. So then on the right here, you can see that after COVID, we had 2,000 tickets per week and 3 times as many increase of tickets. 2 hours was an average turnaround time for both onshore and tier 1 support. And then you can see that we dropped a little bit with our SLA. But given that we dropped 3% to 96, I still think is pretty well given the circumstances. And then, as Yomara stated before, the flexibility in the tiering between after-hour support, weekend support, and even regular business hours, which were 9 to 5 typically, we were able to take members from second and third shifts and put them on to our primary support, which were hours of 9 to 5, to help alleviate the influx of calls that we were getting throughout the day with various issues of people being able to, work from home. Next slide. So again, this is the top 20 count, or the top 20 tickets that we received during the COVID crisis. And on the right here, you can see that there's 624 incidents for computer. I know that's pretty vague, but that could be anything from hardware to external monitors to help me set up my printer, help me set up something at home. And again, that's pretty vague, but you can see the numbers are pretty high. And that was just in a 2-week to a 3-week span. So a lot of this stuff is all related directly to COVID, because a lot of these questions or a lot of these tickets that we get throughout the day and throughout the week when people are in the office are not that many. But again, due to COVID, numbers, they surged and people needed to work. Next slide, please. This graph here shows a survey. When people are done with an incident, it's an automatic response that comes up, and a lot of people have been taking the time now to submit surveys on a rating of 1 through 5, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. And as this slide here indicates and shows, that you can see on the right-hand corner there, we have an average of 4.77, which again is pretty good. Actually, it's very good, because again, we are a business. We are pretty needy. There are some demanding people out there, and a lot of these surveys and questions are a direct reflection of the VyomLabs team being able to have quick turnaround time, being professional, being courteous, and also helping us alleviate other issues that take longer to resolve. So again, kudos to Vyom and their team for providing such a great survey rate. So this slide here is our T1 support best practices during the COVID-19 pandemic. So pretty much on the top left there, it says, after a statewide lockdown, all support staff started working from home, well equipped with laptops, SOP manuals, and internet connectivity. Before the statewide lockdown was announced, Starr decided that we were going to allow employees to work from home, and we started utilizing our BCP plan, which was put into play. And during that time, it actually put our BCP plan to the test. The BCP plan consisted of procuring and deploying Chromebooks, enterprise licensing through Google, configuring and shipping devices to home locations, remote assistance for Chromebooks, and Chrome enterprise enrollment. We have had some documentation on that, and we shared it with our Tier 1 support, VyomLabs, and they were also tremendous in helping people get enrolled with the information that was provided to them. They provided training to the end user, and they were able to get them up and going in a timely fashion. The technology obviously played a crucial role in the various collaborative tools. Like I said, we've used Teams, we have Citrix. Citrix is what we're using for people that have home PCs. We're utilizing that technology where they could log onto their home PC and they can get access to Starr's resources. So there's no need for anyone to go into the office or submit, or to configure any hardware that needs to be sent out through traditional ways, through mail. So again, that's a quick turnaround that we're using and utilizing for pretty much 95% of all of our remote employees that need to have access to specific systems. We've also ensured that employees could work remotely without sacrificing collaboration, productivity, or security. And again, through flexible collaborative meetings such as Teams, we do have some presentations, as you know, right now what we're doing through Zoom and WebEx as well. Next slide, please. And that concludes my portion. I'd like to turn it back over to Siva.
Thank you, Yomara and John. So as you can see, that Service Rise primarily consists of human agents. Where in case of Starr, we were able to quickly pilot, ramp up, and provide the service over 2 years, and also have the ability to flexibly ramp up in these times of crisis. We also have, in combination of human agents, these bots by Automation Edge, which will also automate those repetitive tasks that typically service desk receives L1, L2. And we have seen customers leveraging both the human agents and bots, and you see that the tickets can go all the way up to even 50% of the tickets are automated, and also the cost reductions and improved SLAs with this service. This is not tied to any specific service desk. It could work with any service desk. The bots and our agents are also trained in all the service desk tools, as well as how to manage the bots in terms of administration and reporting. Now, I think we'll conclude the webinar, but before that, we will obviously take some questions. So we'll have the attendees put their questions on chat. There's a separate Q&A icon where you can put your questions, and we'll take those questions. Between myself, Yomara, and John will address those questions. Just give a minute for people to post those questions. Yeah, I received one here. I think this is John for you. Specific to COVID-19, in the month of March, when you saw the sudden surge, what was the communication model between Starr Insurance IT team or yourself with the VyomLabs team, and because a lot of customers are going through that experience at different parts of the world based on where COVID has peaked out or just starting to ramp up. So they would like to know more, how did the entire communication and engagement happen just during the COVID situation. Go ahead, John.
The communication was obviously done by Starr employees from senior management down. As the information flowed into me, I was in constant contact with my team leads, which are Mahesh and Dynand, and I referred the information or gave the information to them via email and through Teams, and through also meetings through Teams in our weekly catch-ups.
Okay, thank you. The next one is for Yomara. Yomara, how did the entire Service Rise service start and ramp up over the years? I know you were involved on the initial, piloting and others. So how was that kind of, from an engagement model standpoint?
So how did it came about? Is that a question?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, okay. So previous to my role, right now I'm the Senior Director for Strategy and Governance. I report directly to the CIO. I've been in Starr for 6 years, and I've been in IT for 20 years. And my previous role was the Director of IT Services, what John is doing today. So I had the help desk under me. And initially, 5 years ago, we deployed Remedy-Force as the help desk tool. That was very good, very efficient. We used it with our onshore team. The onshore team was about, I think, 5 people. It increased to 12. And as the company continued to grow, continued to open offices, we were adding headcount year to year. It was never decreasing. So it got to the point that we realized, okay, do we continue to go ahead and continue to onboard more people, have FTEs, and have them on different remote sites, or do we start leveraging these offshore services? Now, I think everyone has their own feedback and their own experience on offshore services, and as a company, traditionally, it wasn't perceived as a positive thing, right? It was perceived as, well, onshore work. What about the language? Is going to be any language barriers? Is there going to be any issues? Communication skills? Why not, right? So there was some apprehension, and that's the truth. So what we ended up doing is deciding, okay, doing a cost benefit analysis and realizing what can we get for our budget? Do we get a couple of resources onshore, or do we engage with this new proof of concept and see how it works? When we finalized it, we came up with a business plan, discussed it with senior management, and got the green light to move forward just with a proof of concept for 3 months and see how it goes. That's when we realized that it was a successful framework. So we didn't just go on the project and decided we're just gonna get offshore services and then not make a very educated decision. We actually did. We planned it really well. It took us about 6 months, and Siva will attest to that. It took us a very long time to come down to a proper SOW, get confident and comfortable with the workload that they're going to have, come up with the right POC and the right time frame. And to be honest with you, within a couple of months, we realized this is positive. It's going to work as long as we have the right approach, as long as we have the right sponsorship and the right message, not only to the end users, but also to their colleagues, which is they're going to be working very closely together with the on-site team. We have to be mindful also of their perception that we're not offshoring their roles. The roles were not going to be eliminated. It's just the company continued to grow. We needed to find more of a hybrid model, and it allowed them, actually, the onshore staff, to do more complicated work, be involved in higher, more interesting projects, and offload their daily tasks that can be repetitive over to their colleagues on VyomLabs offshore. And as long as, I think the whole point was to have a proper communication across the board with all the stakeholders, to have a right plan, to come up with a right proof of concept and measure our success. And it turned out to be very well, and it's taking us to where we are today, which was an unprecedented pandemic that we had no idea this was going to happen a month ago, or maybe even 2 months ago. But because of what we did 2 years ago and the flexibility to work with a company like VyomLabs, it allowed us to be to the point that we are today. And we've actually gotten very positive feedback, not only from end users, but from senior management, stating how smoothly it went to get the entire company within the U.S. I think we're about 2,000 employees, just U.S.-wide, within the U.S. to within a 2-week frame, have people working. And that is tremendous. And it's tremendous for, and it's very positive, not only for the onshore staff, but also for the offshore staff, which means VyomLabs. Hopefully that answers the question.
Very great. Thank you. Thank you, Yomara. I have a few more questions around language and the target market. So what languages do we support? So I'll take that. We do support English. We also support Spanish for Spanish customers and users or employees are Spanish speaking. We are also investing in other languages like Portuguese, German, French. So we're expanding that team. And then the other is I think the target market. So the target market, it's not specific to any like North America. This service is available globally. So if you're from Latin America, from US, Canada, Europe, APAC, because as you see from Starr Insurance as well, we are supporting them globally as well. So the service could be initiated from anywhere in the world, in the sense it will be all remote, but it could be for any customer. Next one is this for you, John. The resource pool that you have for from VyomLabs, ServiceRise, how are you how are they maintaining them? Are there backups just in case somebody is on, gets sick? How do you rotate them on shifts so that there is always continuity in terms of providing the service and triaging the tickets, especially when there is, these surges that happen during these, crisis times. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, so what we normally do, again, I'm in constant contact with Mahesh and Danny throughout this crisis. I ask them constantly, how our chat is doing, if there's a lot of chats coming in during this time, and if someone, for whatever reason, does call out sick or can't make it or can't be on the normal 9 to 5, I will take someone from a chat resource and replace them onto the regular tier 1 support. We've also done that with the second and third shifts where we would, move people around to better coverage the primary 9 to 5.
Sure, got it. I think we'll take one more question. I know we're getting more questions. One more is, at what point do you start the automation journey using your bots or from human agents? So I'll take that, and then Yomara, you can add also from your context to Starr's journey if that's it's in the pipeline. But we have seen customers, start with the automation along with agents together as one offering as well, where they see that typical repetitive tickets could be done by bots. So they would invest in Automation Edge and human agents together. The other types of customers that they want to first stabilize this service with human agents first, and then obviously see the pattern of tickets where we have to do some discovery in terms of analyzing which tickets could be automated and based on volume, based on SLA requirements to the business, and they become candidates for automation. And then we build these bots. We've seen that customers gain value from cost reduction because as they do more automation during this journey, they can reduce their current operational costs on just human agents because the bots will be cheaper and more efficient and they're scalable. So there are different times. And like I said, there are customers who have already automated 50% of their tickets. Yomara, I'll also have you add from a Starr. I know we were exploring bots at some point in time and then there was a readiness. But then do you plan also to at some point introduce bots on the IT side, which can be beneficial both from cost as well as SLA improvement in using ServiceRise? Go ahead.
Yeah. So, well, as our culture, it depends. I think it depends on the company, right? And the culture for our company has been. We had to be very careful and almost, I'm trying to put it in a nice manner, we had to be delicate on what we're introducing. They are used to having a person people are used to having the person by their desk, helping them even to the minor issues. So we were taking a very careful approach, a very strategic approach. We wanted this to be successful but we didn't just want to throw something there and see if it sticks, right? So the bots did come across our table. It was something that at that point, because we were also introducing level 1 support offshore, we didn't just want to introduce absolutely everything. I think now proven that this is successful with being, our partnership is now 2 years. We've moved from level 1 support to a multi-channel to regional offices with South America and Europe and Asia, to now doing chat support. And the future is we're currently working on application level 1 support, which means that right now our level 1 support is only desktop support, and you saw the different categories that the team handles. But now there's going to be an application level 1 support that we're going to POC, and we're going to do basically follow the same path that we followed previously. But might be potential. It all depends on our company and the company culture right now. It's pretty much they like to see they like to have a response from a human. It doesn't mean that issues like simple issues like password resets or things that a bot can do can potentially be doing. We can probably do a POC and see how it works. Now that we've been proven that this framework and this hybrid environment works, we might be able to introduce that easier than just introducing everything at once.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Yomara. I think we can conclude now the webinar. I want to again thank Starr Insurance, Yomara Knott, and John Hokanson for being part of this webinar. And I want to thank you all audience who have joined this webinar. If you have any further questions, you will receive a notification around this attendance, and you can also post those questions. We'll get back to you. Again, thank you once again. Have a great day, stay safe, and have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.